This is the Green Corn Rebellion Show. I'm Gregory Harden II. Today I'm here with Amanda Siebe, who is running for Congress in Oregon's 1st District. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So, first question, where are you from and where did you grow up at?
So, I'm from Oregon District 1, and I grew up here. Beaverton, Oregon is where I spent the first 18 years of my life, and then I went down to Monmouth, Oregon for college down at Western Oregon University. I stayed there till 2010 when I decided that I wanted to serve my community as a firefighter and paramedic, and I moved to San Francisco to attend paramedic school. But my path took kind of a weird veer from there because I ended up disabled. But that's an entirely different subject.
All right. So, what made you want to run for Congress?
There we go. So when I was down in San Francisco, I was working to earn that $10,000 to start the paramedic program. And I was working as a restaurant manager and I fell at work. And what should have really been a simple sprained ankle turned into full body reflex sympathetic dystrophy, all because my employer was allowed to put priority on their profits rather than my body. And so I ended up with this crazy nerve condition. I saw how broken our workers' compensation system is and how all those safety nets that should be there to help us and protect us were just gone. They had been cut so bad that workers were falling through literally to their deaths. And we have no real protections for them. And so when I started seeing the way the workers' compensation worked, and then the way that we treat disabled people, and then the way that we treat those patients that require opiate pain management to live and function, to treat their chronic pain, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. And so that's why I decided to stand up and run.
All right. So your platform has a very detailed plan for criminal justice reform. It also includes an inmate's bill of rights, ending the war on drugs, and improving officer training. Could you talk about some of the details of your plan that you've outlined?
Right. My best friend, I met him at Standing Rock, and he came here afterwards and hasn't really left. But he was in Florida, and a simple stop and search turned into felony assault on an officer because the officer came up to him and told him to drop his skateboard so he could check him for marijuana, and he dropped his skateboard, and the skateboard fell, it bounced, hit the cop's shoe, and scuffed his boot, and that turned into felony assault on an officer. And then he went to, after he finally got out, he went and lived with his mother, and his sister had boxes there. And buried in one of those boxes was a handgun that he had no idea was in that house. And the probation officer had found it going through those boxes, and he got felonious assault of a weapon. And his entire life has been ruined. I've seen people's lives get ruined. You know, the system is set up for people to fail. We are set up against the poor people. The district attorney that handled his case, they said that for $5,000 I can make it all go away. That was a BS, charge. You shouldn't have been charged for that. No way. And for $5,000 I can make it all disappear. But he didn't have $5,000. So he ended up doing a total of almost 3 years in jail for that because he didn't have the resources he needed. He didn't have anybody fighting for him. And that's the story that I hear over and over and over again, is people that were caught doing something wrong and were stuck into a system and then didn't have any means to fight those charges. I mean, we see it over and over again. The Central Park Five, key example. They didn't have the resources that they needed to fight those charges. And it's wrong. We have people on death row in an unjust system where they don't even get proper representation. They don't get proper appeals, proper evidence, that are dying, and we aren't even entirely sure they're guilty because of the system that we live in, that they just might not have had the proper representation. We know that there are people that are innocent in jail that have taken a plea because it's, well, either I do 2 years or I face the possibility of 10. So which am I going to choose? And that's just wrong.
All right. So you support the Green New Deal. Could you talk about your support for it?
I do. I mean, the Green New Deal, the climate crisis is the number one issue facing us. Everything else is secondary. If we don't fix that, if we don't start making those changes, then social justice, our government reform, our criminal justice reform, everything else becomes mute because we're all dead. We're not functioning. We're not going to be alive. So why does anything else matter? So we really need to take care of the climate crisis first and foremost. And along with the Green New Deal comes the federal housing program, comes the federal job guarantee. Those are all part of it. Medicare for all. We need to ensure those programs that not only benefit our environment and our planet, but benefit the people in our society. And that's a huge part of the reason that I support the Green New Deal. Is not just because it's environmental change and planetary change, but it's community change as well. And that's what we need to see.
All right. So you have a very comprehensive plan for disability rights. Would you like to talk about some of those things in your plan for disability rights?
Yeah, I mean, we know the disabled community hasn't really had any change since 1990. That was the first positive piece of legislation for our community. Before that, it had been eugenics and ugly laws that had limited us and kept us out of society. So 1990 was our first piece of legislation. And we really haven't done much to update it since then. We haven't really updated the ADA at all. And there are still major parts of our society and our country and our cities that are completely inaccessible to those with disabilities. Going around in a wheelchair, going to the bathroom is an incredibly hard thing because even if there are handicap stalls, people don't know how to put them in correctly. And so doors are backwards and everything's, not actually handicap accessible, or the ramps are too steep. So we really need to go through and standardize these things, make sure that the ADA is being applied properly. I mean, when we talk about a living wage, we need to ensure that that includes those on Social Security, supplemental social income, and Social Security disability. We have 554,000 homeless people in this country, and of them, 40% are disabled and 30% are over the age of 65. So just by making those programs a living wage, we'd be able to cut the homelessness rate by over half, improve the quality of life for 81 million people, and just generally improve the welfare and the economy by investing in people instead of programs. So I'd love to see those changes. There are definitely others. Like right now, we allow for companies to pay disabled people a lower wage just because they're disabled. So while companies like Goodwill are making huge, massive amounts in profits, billions of dollars in profits, their CEO is making millions of dollars every year. Their workers, disabled workers, which they tout as their key thing that they hired disabled people, are making less than minimum wage. And it's perfectly legal. And so these changes just haven't been seen as a priority in our society. And I'd love to change that.
All right. You also support Medicare for all. Could you talk about your support for that as well?
Right. I mean, as a patient, I've seen the ins and outs of the healthcare system. I mean, the same private companies that messed up the healthcare system have also messed up workers' compensation. We have so many overlapping problems between the two where we're just putting profits over people over and over and over again. And so by ensuring that everyone has coverage, right now we have 30 million people in the Medicaid gap where you earn too much for Medicaid, but too little for any help through the ACA, where you can actually be able to pay for those premiums. And they have nothing, and we need to cover that. I mean, I understand that there is resistance to Medicare for all because there are employees that have used healthcare to offset their wages. But for those situations where healthcare is now covered, they can actually increase their wages out of pocket to make up for the fact that they no longer have to pay for the healthcare. And so this would be a win-win for them. Not only do they get awesome healthcare that covers everything, every condition, every medication, every treatment, every part of the body, and every person. I mean, not only does it do that, but you get extra money in your check to now just have. I mean, that's a win-win. And that's how we need to start selling it to people is, yes, it will take away those benefits that you have collectively bargained for, but now you can collectively bargain and figure out exactly how much of a wage increase you should get to compensate for that and offset the fact that you no longer have to pay for healthcare. So I'm really excited to see these changes be put in place.
All right. One of my favorite parts of your platform is the Workers' Bill of Rights, especially the policy where you talk about promoting employee ownership of companies. Could you talk more about what else is in your Workers' Bill of Rights?
Right. So the Workers' Bill of Rights is so important. Right now, in the industrialized world, we have some of the overworked, underpaid, least benefits, and most abused employees across the board. And we're really proud of that for some reason, which seems baffling. So what we need to do is we need to start giving our employees the same benefits that are just standard everywhere else. Medical leave, paternity and maternity leave. We need to start allowing for retirement accounts that start with the employee's first job and keep following through from every job that they go to, because our society is not the same that it was 40 years ago. 40 years ago, you could stay in one job for 20 years and earn that awesome retirement account. But here, we don't. We stay with a job maybe 2-3 years and then move on. It leaves us with these itty bitty little teeny tiny retirement accounts, 6 months here, a year there, 3 years here. And you can't do anything with that money. It's never allowed to accumulate. And so if we have these retirement accounts, starting with the first job, that people can just stick money to and watch it grow, then it allows people to take ownership, see what their future holds, see where they're at, and really take ownership of how they manage their budget and manage their finances going forward. I mean, we have so many different things like worker protections and workplace protections, child care, ensuring that families have the ability to have their kids taken care of while they're working. I mean, we have vacation pay. Other countries, they give you 3 months off a year, just sabbatical, just so that you can have that. And I can't tell you the last time that I really had a vacation as a worker, even well before I was disabled. I can't tell you. It was nothing, and it was definitely nothing near even close to a month. So we need to start really giving the employees the respect and dignity that they deserve. These companies would not exist without us. We put our hearts, our souls, and our bodies into these companies, and then they turn around and screw us over and talk about these amazing stock shares and profit gains and everything, but they get those profit gains off the backs of their employees. And so by increasing employee ownership in companies, we're giving employees that share of the blood, the sweat, the tears that they are putting into that company. I mean, we deserve to be compensated for our work.
All right. Let's see here. Okay, and another thing I really like about your platform is the government reform part. Could you talk about some of those things that are in it?
Yeah, so publicly funded elections is a huge thing for me. I mean, I hate the fact that I have to fundraise. It should just be, all right, you're running for office. You have met your minimum amount of signatures. Here you go. Here is your account. It is set up. Here is your money. This is how much you get for the campaign. And the only thing that separates candidates should be our policies and us. Like what you get as a candidate and the policies that we bring to the table. That should be the only thing that separates us. And instead, Susan Bonamici has over $1 million in her fundraising campaign, and I've got 3,700. And it's kind of like, well, you know, I'm lucky that I have that line that I live in this community. This is my hometown. You know, these are my people, and I can get around this. You know, I'm always on public transportation, but I should have the same footing in this race that she does. You know, I should have the same respect, as should all the candidates that I know are challenging incumbents. I mean, we shouldn't be spending and expect our elected representatives to be spending 6 hours a day fundraising. Like, that's just insane. I mean, they have so much more important things to do than fundraise. I mean, and that's what we need to remember. I mean, term limits. If some of these representatives have been in Congress longer than I've been alive, and that really should not be the case. I mean, if a president can only stay in that position for 2 terms, then why aren't we extending that to everywhere else? Why do we have these career politicians that are able to stay in for generations and maintain their beliefs and their policies and their way of doing things and their way of corrupting and manipulating the system to benefit them personally? Because that's what happens when you stay there that long, is you learn how to pull those threads of government to make everything come to you, to gain that little bit of power, you know, to become the top dog and get that title. I mean, Mitch McConnell is a prime example of this. Mm-hmm. Been in there forever and is sitting there pulling every single little string he can to bring everything he can right to him. And is that really what we want? Is that really the type of government that we want? I mean, especially in the House of Representatives, that is the people's house. That should look like the people. And right now, when I look at that, I see a lot of really old, really rich people. And that is definitely not us. And I mean, when are we going to stand up and decide that the most important part of our government, it's not the president, it's not the judicial system, it's not the legislative system, it's the people. The people are the most important part of our government. We hold all the power. And when we take that power back, and the politicians and the elected officials and the career politicians, when they realize that they're actually accountable to us, and now we know it, then we hold even more power. Because right now, their biggest thing is that they've convinced us that we are powerless, and that is nowhere near the truth. And we need to stand up and unite together and really realize that the threads that unite us as a people are poverty, oppression, and injustice. And it unites every single one of our communities. And we let them divide us on racial lines. We let them divide us on mental ability, on physical ability, on age, on gender, on LGBTQ. You know, we let them use all these different categories to divide us. And the moment we tear down all those walls is when we really take back the power. And part of tearing down those walls is ensuring that the government really works for the people again.
All right. I know this isn't mentioned on your platform, but do you think that we should look at abolishing the Senate due to the fact that it's inherently undemocratic?
I don't know if abolishing the Senate would be the best thing. Reforming the Senate, ensuring that the Senate works for the people, making sure that the people are the ones in charge of those seats again. Like, that's what I want to see. I want to see every single one of those politicians accountable to us. Like, our government, it worked in the past. It did. There was a time when our government worked. And just because it's not working now, I mean, the reason it's not working now is not because it's a completely broken system. It's because of the people that we have in there ruining it. You know, once we get out those people, every single one of those old world incumbents that have been in there for generations, who have corruption in their bloodstream, once we get them out, then we retake our government, and then it's fixed again. It's not the system that's broken per se. It's the people that we have in it that have manipulated the system to becoming broken.
All right. And last question, who are your favorite music artists?
Oh man, I love Queen. I know that sounds. I listen to a lot of Queen lately. Let's see. I listen to a lot of like 80s rock and show tunes. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but you will find a mad show tune busting at my house. My life's ambition is to live the life of a Broadway musical. Keep it happy, keep it snappy, you know. Yeah. So that's my musical around my house.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Where can we find you on social media, and where's your campaign website?
It's www.siebe2020.com, siebe2020.com, and find me on Twitter at cb4ord1. So, all right.
All right. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.